Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, call Allah Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Ba'ashim Rakakwadash. Alright. Once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. We continue to push out this truth with all honesty and sincerity. Salutations to the fellow Akim around the four corners of this earth, pushing this truth in all honesty and sincerity, trying to wake up the remaining hopeful elect. This is Naaman with the DC camp. And, well, of course, you can't have too many videos when you're pointing out the wickedness of this devil, this Edomite, this so-called white man. All right. Here's from the Independent. This is going to be one of a couple of articles I'm going to go through, just pointing out this devil's wickedness. Harvard. Harvard accused of holding human remains of thousands of so-called Native Americans who are Gadites, despite order for return. You got Reuben and Gad, all right? Despite order for return. All right, this is one of these museums here. Harvard University has been accused of holding back thousands of Native American remains in spite of a federal law mandating their return. So they said, we don't give a fuck. All right. On Wednesday, a leaked report obtained by student newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, said an internal probe into the prestigious university's museum collections had uncovered nearly 7,000 Native American remains. 7,000. What are you doing? Like I said earlier, this seems like this is just out of spite. Like, we're doing it because we can. Fuck you. Fuck your order. All right? See, that's why we always tell you the spirit of this fucking devil, man, how much hatred he has for Jake. All right? But a lot of you still don't believe it. You still believe he can change. No. He is the way he is because that's the way he was created. He was created to be the wicked, i.e. the adversary, in the sense that you're talking about human adversary. All right. It says the collection, which likely includes the remains of enslaved indigenous people, has been in Harvard's possession for decades, despite a 1990 federal law requiring their return to Native Americans. So you're looking at 3 decades since, all right, this law was put into effect, and they still said, fuck you. Wow. See, and that's why, for you idiots that still trust in this devil and believe that he's, I don't know, in any sense of the word, righteous or good. No, hell no. All right. So some of you people got to find out the hard way, and you're getting ready to with what's coming down the pike here, and very, very soon. All right. He's going to crash this economic system as you know it. And a lot of you, or I should say a lot of us, you got to have faith at the end of the day. But for those of you that don't, for those of you that have no idea, no clue what's going on, hey, the proverbial expression, getting caught with your pants down, that's going to be you all. And this is deadly, and I emphasize deadly serious. All right. Harvard professor Evelyn M. Hammonds, who headed the committee behind the report, told the Crimson, it is deeply frustrating. The newspaper chosen to publish the document, which remains unfinalized and was dated 19 April. Releasing this draft is irresponsible reporting and robs the committee of finalizing its report and associated actions and puts in jeopardy the thoughtful engagement of the Harvard community. Bullshit. You've had 3 decades since the order came down to return the remains. So, fuck what this piece of shit says. He added, further, it shares an outdated version with the Harvard community that does not reflect weeks of additional information and committee work. According to the report, its authors acknowledged the university's engagement in and complicity in these categorically immoral systems in apparent reference to colonialism. And that's just what it is, colonialism. Israel, we're talking about the true Israel, the real Hebrew Israelites, are fucked up. This is talking about, this is, what's the scientific word I want to use? Transgenerational. This is, all right, a result of generation after generation after generation after generation. This is, what's another, uh, um, the expression I like to use, because a lot of Jake, you know, you want to say as a result, um, we use it, I don't anymore, but Stockholm Syndrome, but it's more of a colonial mindset as a result. And when you look that up, uh, again, it's using the T word, transgenerational, because what's the scripture about a wounded spirit who can bear it? And that's Jake as a nation, you know, that's we're still under the punishment, but thankfully, all right, those curses are being lifted and they're being transferred over to our enemies per Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7. All right, let's get that real quick. All right, these curses are being look at the, I mean, you won't even return a person's or a people's remains. That's hatred. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7 says, "And the Most High Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies." Remember, Deuteronomy 28, which is making reference to, you get all those curses, which only in total, all right, because you're talking about a nation now. You may have others that one or two you can link to, but from verse 16 to 68, or 15 to 68, uh, when it tells you in 15, if you do not, all right, follow these laws, statutes, and commandments, this is what's going to happen to you. And as a result, from 16 to 68, that fits our peoples, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans like a glove. And who can argue? Of course, you have some that argue because they've lied for so long, and now people are finding out that they did lie, and they prospered greatly from it. And those people that I'm talking about are the so-called Jews, the ones that stole our identity. And what did they do? Our people get so caught up in, well, we were freed in 63, but it took another almost 2 years to finalize, because of course the plantation owners didn't tell a lot of Jakes, especially in the South, and until 1865. So you got to understand, it wasn't over. We've been used to this at that point, free labor, for a couple of 100 years. So it's like, well, when you, to include Gad, it's been at that point over 300 years. So we've had all this free labor. When you understand the Northern Kingdom, I should say, not just Gad, but the other tribes, when you, in the totality, when you talk about the Americas, all right, and everywhere else they were. So we've had all this free labor. What are we going to do? So then they came up with this prison industrial complex, and it just shifted. So now, when you read the 13th Amendment, these slick bastards, well, all right, there's no more slavery unless you're convicted of a crime. So guess what? And some other wicked checks and balances. During Reconstruction, what did they do? You had the formation of the National Rifle Association, which is in the news big now in light of these so-called shootings. All right, and at the same time, the Ku Klux Klan was formed, and you had the terrorism associated with the Klan and others associated with them. And then after all that, you got 13th Amendment, like I mentioned, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, uh, which supposedly protected us against, what was it, the poll tax and all that other wicked shit. Anything to, as far as voting. But of course, that didn't work. Then Jim Crow, old Jim Crow, all these things, and yet we still prospered. And you think about Exodus, first chapter, when it talks about how, for fear of us, because we steadily were increasing in number, this nation started to fear us. So what happened? As in then, so now in the 20s, you had this demon Margaret Sanger, and then, well, actually before that, you had a cousin of what's that devil's name? Cousin of Darwin. What was his name? Gast. Shit. He's so-called father of eugenics. But in the 20s, here comes a believer in his bullshit, Margaret Sanger, and this, uh, doing away with so-called, she referred to us as weeds also, all right? You know how they like to talk in metaphor and shit like that, but just as a brief, little history, I didn't want to focus on that, but these things you need to know because it shows you this devil never, ever, ever let up, all right? He never did, and that's Isaiah 14 chapter with a continual stroke. Let's get that real quick. Because a lot of you say, oh, you motherfuckers have no clue. Here it is. This is Isaiah 14, and this chapter is talking about a man, by the way. All right, the first two verses. Hey, we're going to get payback. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, Israel, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and will yet choose Israel. So for you people that, well, Israel was done away with, no, you wish, and you have those, specifically the nation of Edom, that this is what they're banking on, that somehow they will get that birthright back, but it's not going to happen. Anyway, for the Most High will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. All right. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. Not those pieces of shit, those phonies that are over there now, pretending to be us. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Most High Yahweh for servants and handmaids. Revelation 13, verse 9 and 10. All right. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. That scares the shit out of these devils that are reading this and starting to, because of Great Millstone and others, people have started reading their Bibles and not depending on those pieces of shit that were set up, those Pied Pipers, which this current demon running around trying to strip the skin back off Jake. All right, vocab Malone. Verse 3, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Most High Yahweh shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve. Now my point being here is verse 5, I'm going to skip down. The Most High Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. 6, the point, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. And we're persecuting this devil now. That's why he wants to shut down, because all this information, he wants to shut down the net. All this information is coming out in droves. It's like that little Dutch boy with the dam trying to poke the hose in. the water representing all the information about the wickedness he's done. He doesn't have enough appendages to plug in all the holes. All right. So let's go back to this about Harvard here, hanging on to the bones of Gadites and Reubenites. All right. Anyway, as the Washington Post reported of the leak, the probe called on Harvard to quicken its return of collection to those communities, both indigenous and African. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. If anybody remembers the movement in the late '70s, uh, what was the group? The all their last names were Africa. Move. All right. In the late '70s, 77, 78. But when I was about to go into, let's see, was it May of '85? There was this showdown in Philadelphia where they ended up bombing them bombing the whole neighborhood. I mean, I think it was like 60 homes that were just decimated because the city dropped a bomb on the house and subsequent houses, and they burned them out. And when you look at the video, it's so sad. One guy was running down the street trying to get away, and the cops beat the shit out of this just Jake. And they say they don't understand how the gunfire started, that it was someone else away from the scene that started, but you know how cops are. So they started shooting, and a lot of Jakes, when the houses were on fire, they tried to, including children, when they tried to run out the gunfire, because of the gunfire, they ended up running back in, and they subsequently burned to death. He's talking about, they're making reference to the bones of those individuals. And they never gave them back, the remains. They studied them. Why, I don't know. For too long, these remains have been separated from their individuality, their history, and their communities. All right. See, this devil, it says here, to restore those connections will require further provenance research and community consultation. In addition, research might include, and here is what this devil might include, DNA or other analysis for the express purposes of identifying lineal descendants. Why? Lineal descendants. Don't you understand the system that's getting ready to go into effect here shortly? With this devil doing all this research, trying to get everybody, because they want to, at the end of the day, come up with a means of detecting who Israel. Remember Jeremiah 31st chapter, let's go to it real quick, because this devil is trying to, again, this goes back to that birthright that he sold, that he's trying to get back. Let's go to Jeremiah 31, because this was promised to us. It says, this is Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. It says, behold, the days come, saith the Most High Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. There's only two covenants. There's the old, and there's the one that's coming, the new one. Ezekiel 36 and 24 through 26, and then Hebrews 8th chapter. That's a new covenant. That's only for Israel. Continuing on, it says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That's ancient Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was as an husband unto them, saith the Most High Yahweh. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Most High, I will put my law in their inward parts. Remember I mentioned Ezekiel 36 and 24. And write in their hearts, and will be their power, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Most High Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Most High. For I will forgive their iniquity, not everybody else's, Israel's iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Thus said, and this is the point, this is what Esau has been trying to do. 35, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Most High, the Lord of hosts, is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Most High, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from